So we're going to talk about storytelling today. And so for the beginning of this story, I want to tell you that I was going to be this guy. Maybe not this guy exactly, but my whole goal in life was to be commissioner of baseball. And that's my whole plan. So when I was at the University of Arizona, I did what you would do. You work with the sports department of a TV station. You learn about TV, because I'm going to go be a broadcast journalist. But then I had this fear. I move around too much, don't I, Eddie? I need to stay next to the mic. Is that okay? Got it.
Okay. Whoa.
How about I just stand next to the mic? That's much more comfortable. I had this fear that if I stayed in journalism, I was going to end up in Des Moines, Iowa, doing sportscasting. I was like, I do not want to end up in Des Moines, Iowa. So I moved to a finance and marketing degree and worked in a minor league baseball team down there. And that's where you get to do glamorous things, like you even get to dress up as a bull. And you have not lived until it's a Tucson 110-degree day and you're wearing a fuzzy bull outfit, okay? So I did really well, and I moved my way up through the chain, and I was on my way to become the commissioner of baseball. And my first real baseball job, I don't know if you guys recognize where this stadium is. It's not even Des Moines, Iowa. It's Davenport, Iowa, right? So I couldn't even make it out to Des Moines. I found a stadium where the Mississippi River would overflow at the same time that it was snowing. It's quite a feat. Anyway, so I found my way back to Seattle, and I don't know if you guys remember in '96, the Kemp and Payton days. A lot of things were going a lot of really cool things happening in Seattle. There was this funny thing down in the Bay Area called Yahoo that was making a lot of noise, driving the internet scene. Mark Andreessen was making a lot of noise. And then there was this crazy company up in Seattle called Progressive Networks that was doing audio and video on the internet. And so I had no technology background whatsoever, but I had a TV background and a sports background, and I had a finance degree. And Maria Cantwell just came out of a meeting and said, don't we have anybody in this marketing department that knows anything about finance? And I got hired. So that's how I got into technology, natural transition, and through that I did some time over at Microsoft. I went back, got my MBA with these guys over here. Did some startup marketing work with some small tech companies. Worked with a social media firm, started a different social media firm, and now I'm at a company called Relaborate, and what we're doing is we're helping brands develop their stories. It's software that helps their brands develop their stories and get everybody in the organization to participate. So that's kind of my introduction to you guys. And it's a little bit long-winded, I know, but I think if we meet at lunch or if we meet at the bar after the event, there's probably something in that resonated with you. It may have been Tuffy the Toro, it may have been Maria Cantwell, it may have been Yahoo. There's probably something that you'll remember from that. Because I could have thrown up this slide, right? I could have thrown up a bunch of bullets and let you guys read along, right? I might have even designed it a little bit better and put my team colors on there, right? And I could have gotten really creative and put an image of Seattle in the background. But you wouldn't have been listening to me. You'd have been going through these bullets. And another Rand Fishkin quote is that bullets kill cats. I don't know why he says that, but so you shouldn't use bullets. I know. So we'll try to do a slide. We're trying to do a presentation here without bullets. But the main purpose of this presentation isn't about slides. It's about telling stories. And there is a trend now moving in marketing about storyteller marketing or storytelling marketing or adding storytelling to your marketing. And it's not just me that's coming up with this. This is, there's a lot of really great authors that are writing great books on this. Has anybody read this book, Seth Godin's book? What did you guys think? What was your big takeaway from Seth's book? Yeah. The interesting story about this book is he published it first as All Marketers Are Liars, and then he had to republish it because people actually took the wrong impression of it. There's another book by a guy named Hanson Hossein, who runs the MCDM program at the UW, that I would suggest as well reading, called Storyteller Uprising. Sorry. So why is this suddenly becoming important to marketers? And this slide from Big Blues Marketing, an LA firm, I think describes it better than I can describe it. And I've been out of college about 20 years, and I remember the funnel, right? You remember your awareness, evaluation, trial, right? That's a tried and true model in marketing. But today, and what we've learned in the social media space and now the content marketing space is, sorry, Eddie, it's this bottom of the, it's the bottom of the funnel now that's more and more important. And I can't remember who said this quote, but it's something like, a customer is just an ex-customer that hasn't left yet, right? Because somebody is coming after your customers. And so the more that you can get them involved with your story, get them involved with what you're doing in a deeper level, that bottom of the funnel is going to work on your behalf. There's another slide, a couple quotes that I liked, is that we all love our products. We love our companies. We think they're the most important things on the planet. But for most customers, they just don't care. We're just another piece of clutter. We're a coupon code or an ad or whatever they saw. We're in between whatever they want to do. So we need to become a story so that we become something they want to be a part of. Because it's not that they don't like us, it's just that they're just indifferent. And getting over indifference is a really hard thing to do. The other couple things that pop out to me, being in the social media space, is that there's just a lot of clutter out there. And when we've done social media consulting in the past, we've tried to advise people that it's not about, should I have a Facebook page? Should I have a Twitter account? Should I be on Pinterest? It is about, what is the story that you're telling to customers? What is this kind of like thing that people will get behind? And if you can kind of come up with that theory, then all these are just channels. They're just mediums. They're just pathways to where your people are. So it's not about starting with, should I have a Twitter account? It's, what do I have to say? And if I have a lot to say, who should I be talking to? Then you can just use these channels on your behalf. So we're going to talk, I want to introduce my friends Billy and Rebecca here in a second. They're just not sitting here giving me moral support. We're going to talk about some things that they're doing with their companies in storytelling. But before I get to them, I kind of want to set up and give my idea of what I think makes a great story in a business context. Of course, I love Star Wars, the original one. Well, I guess number 4, whatever. Not number 1. But that's not what we're talking about here today. We're talking about business stories. But at the end of the day, kind of what we're doing with our business stories are also, they kind of follow the same pathway, right? What makes a good story in the movies also makes a good story to your consumers, right? We learned how to listen to stories when we were 3 years old, right? It was the first way that we learned how to do things the right way. So we somehow got away from doing that in marketing. And so here, I just want to throw out a couple ideas, and I'm happy to debate you on if these are, or let you debate me on whether we think these are the best, what makes a good story. I think what every story needs is a hero, right? And you introduce a challenge, right? And it can be somebody as iconic as Steve Jobs, right? Apple has its hero. Its products also become its heroes. And people will rally around these heroes. You may not have a Steve Jobs in your organization. You might. We get a lot of comments in the B2B space of like, well, I don't really have a Steve Jobs or anything like that. It's like, but if you're working in a niche, your company might have the greatest, most intelligent, most thoughtful, and insightful expert in your space in the universe, right? You guys might have, he's not going to be, or she's not going to be Steve Jobs. She may not be Oprah, but, she may be somebody that your market really cares about. Can you build kind of a tribe around that hero? Some companies won't have that, so you have to kind of create one from scratch. Everybody recognize this guy? Right? The Old Spice guy kind of became a hero. He took a brand that nobody had cared about forever, right, and introduced it to a whole new set of people, and he became accessible, right? A deodorant company became accessible via Twitter and emails, and you could actually talk to this giant P&G brand, or I don't know if it's P&G, but this giant CPG brand. You also have heroes who are customers. Anybody know the story of the Fiesta movement? You guys have heard this already. Good. So they're doing this again, where there's 100, or they're giving the Ford Fiesta away to 100 fans, 100 customers for 100 days, and their customers are going to tell them, what they did with their Fiesta. So they're going to let their customers be the heroes of their own story. Now, in some way, the Fiesta itself is going to be kind of a supporting character, but it's really the customers and what they're doing with that Fiesta is kind of the hero. Second thing that I think is really important is you have to give this hero validation or test or some challenge to get through, right? It's not just enough being the mascot. I could be Tuffy the Toro. That's great, right? But did anybody really care unless Tuffy had something that he needed to get done? One of the and this can be done in a lot of different ways. Raise your hand if you follow the SEO Moz blog, if you're familiar with SEO Moz. Okay. So SEO Moz is a Seattle company. They got about 100 so employees now. They're kind of the foremost experts on search engine optimization. They run more A/B tests and tests on their website than anybody on the planet, or just about probably. Maybe HubSpot does more. But what's unique about these guys is they publish the results of every one of the tests. How many people run A/B tests on your website in some way to convert, right? How many of them you guys publish those results so your competitors and everybody else can see? Right? Nobody. SEO Moz is crazy. They do this. But they publish every result, and they have more than 100,000 people who follow them on Facebook and who subscribe to their feeds because they've built this story of, I understand that you have this challenge, and that's converting customers into, we have that challenge too. Why don't you join us in our story? If you join us, you're going to be smart. You'll be part of our tribe, because our tribe is actually smarter than everybody else, because we'll share with each other the results of these tests. So that's a great story for the SEO Moz group to tell their tribe. If you read the Seth Godin book, this was the Toms of Maine story is one that he highlighted, in that you don't necessarily need to tell your story to the entire universe, right? What Toms of Maine did is they had this kind of organic, toothpaste, so they were competing in the toothpaste world against hundreds of other products. And so what they told was a very targeted niche story to a very targeted set of people, right? They went to health food drugstores, basically, in the Maine area. And they told this story, and those people, they found people who were going to, where that story would resonate. They planted that story there, and they let that story, then they let their fans then start sharing that story. And now it's become a national phenomenon. But it's easy to start if you are fearful that you don't have a story that's broad enough appeal for everybody to think about who is most likely to actually want to hear your story and then spread it out to others. And then there's the other side, right? Stories may be really, really simple. This is the Dollar Shave Club guys. Everybody knows them from their video, right? But what most people don't follow after the video is how excellently they market either through the conversion process and then after you've become a customer, right? When you've become a customer and you stop paying them, they send you emails that, like with the bear, and it doesn't say, will you come back? It says, the bear misses you, right? So in this case, so they do things all the way through the funnel, top to bottom, that are very smart. And this is just basically taking Joe Average, and my challenge is I spend too much money on shaving. If you use Dollar Shave Club, you will be smart like me and spend less money on shaving. So it's an easy story that can resonate with customers. The third part of the Act 3, the third part of the storytelling that I think is important is the resolution. We remember this campaign, right? Right? This had a huge buildup, right? Everybody wanted to know if it actually didn't work the first time, right? They had to send the guy back down. I mean, we all don't have marketing budgets like Red Bull, right? God willing that we do someday. But look how many people who weren't even Red Bull drinkers watched this thing live, right? They wanted to see the guy actually live through it. So there was a resolution to this story. Will it blend? Every marketing conference has to talk about will it blend, right? Because they make blenders sexy. Anybody not familiar with will? Raise your hand if you're familiar with the will it blend story. All right, most of you are. So for those who aren't familiar with the will it blend story, it started maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, right? Where they tried to take blenders weren't sexy. And so what they did was called meme jumping. And they started looking for what were people searching for on YouTube, right? And at the time it was iPhones or iPods or whatever, vuvuzelas during the World Cup. So they said, well, whatever people are searching for on YouTube, we know it's not blenders. But if we can grind up whatever they're searching for on YouTube, we're going to get people to watch us. And so that's what they started doing. So they started blending up, Tom, I think this guy's name is, started blending up stuff. And, it starts with the question and the challenge. So Tom's the hero, the blender's the hero, The question is, the challenge is this thing going to blend? Is this Halo disk going to blend? And the resolution is, yeah, it does, right? This blender can do anything, from a Vuvuzela down to a CD-ROM or a DVD or whatever they call these things these days. There is a resolution there. So those are where I think any brand can kind of start from a storytelling perspective. And I wanted to kind of create that framework and then invite Billy and Rebecca, and we're probably going to have to give you a microphone, right? Yeah. You mean I can't have two? I have to share? Okay. So let me, 1 second. Before you start, though. So what we're going to do a little Q&A with these guys. Let me introduce them briefly. Rebecca Level, who is the CEO of Vitana.org. Do you guys know what Vitana does? Okay. And so what I wanted to do is bring two people who could tell 4 uniquely different stories that hopefully will span the spectrum. And so we're going to talk about nonprofits, we're going to talk about real estate, we're going to talk about senior living, and we're going to talk about online dating. So hopefully, with all the people in the room, you can make a connection to one of these stories at least. But all of these stories are going to kind of follow the hero at the front, challenge in the middle, and the resolution at the end. Billy Pettit from Pillar Properties and Merrill Gardens will tell some stories as well. If you go follow Billy on Twitter, it says he's quietly awesome. That's actually the Pillar Properties logo. That's not Billy trying to be bragging. No, I am quite awesome. Not quiet in the least. And we did a run through of this presentation. That's why I had to go through my part in like 20 minutes because he's going to talk a lot. So let's kick it off. So we're going to tell 4 stories. We're going to kick it off with one of my favorite stories. Well, these are 4 of my favorite. This is one of my 4 favorites. Yes. This is a full disclosure. This Merrill and Pillar are clients of ours. Vitana is not, so I wanted to bring people from both sides of the fence. But I'll tell a little bit about the Bill Sleeper story with Merrill Gardens. Does anybody know Bill Sleeper at all? Has anybody seen this story at all? You have, okay.
Does anybody know of Merrill Gardens? Okay.
So why don't you give me a quick overview of the Bill Sleeper story?
Okay. So was there one hand for somebody who's heard of Bill Sleeper? Or multiple? Okay, maybe one. Bill Sleeper is nothing short of a rock star. For all of you who are familiar with senior housing, it is an industry that's constantly evolving and one where there really isn't a whole lot of information out there. Bill Sleeper, this whole story is really a great example of the type of things we've always known have gone on in our communities, but we really never had a way to communicate them. We never had a way to broadcast, these great examples of what life is truly like within a senior housing community, and then really the vibrancy that our lifestyle-focused model brings to seniors when they move in. And Bill was somebody who, actually, Lori Wagner, our head of corporate communications, discovered randomly one day at Merrill Gardens at Mill Creek, I believe it was. And here was a guy who was taking a photo of, I believe he was taking a photo of her with his iPhone. And this is the first time we really kind of, I guess, became aware of the use of smartphones and other technology with our senior resident base. And so it kind of caught Lori's attention a little bit, but we didn't really have any way to communicate that. We could go about traditional means of contacting a news station. Hey, we got a great story about a senior who's using an iPhone, and it's really exciting. That's not going to get anywhere, obviously.
So you discover Bill as this technology guy showing all the other residents how to use technology. What did you guys do next with him?
Well, it was really it just happened to. Well, actually, it took place. I guess the discovery took place just before we launched a social media campaign on a larger scale, and this was working with Andy and ultimately with Rebecca a little bit in her prior role. But we decided to focus on the story of Bill and some of the exciting things that he's been doing, because Bill Sleeper has really grown from not just this guy who's using an iPhone it's gotten to the point where he's actually teaching other seniors, first within his own community at Merrill Gardens at Mill Creek, and then ultimately in other Merrill Gardens communities around the Puget Sound region, on how to use technology. And because most of them don't know or didn't know, now they do, thanks to Bill and obviously their children and grandchildren. So we decided to capitalize on this opportunity and really use social media and our blog, other content, content marketing in general, as a medium to broadcast this story. To really bring it to the masses. This story about a 96-year-old who embraces technology and is going about teaching other seniors how to use technology. And I think, there's a snapshot of it here, but the highlight of it all was Bill appearing on one of the Best Buy holiday ads, and that's really through all our efforts is how it ended up.
And you skipped it. So there's one other part that I'll bring up on this is, so once Merrill started to use, and Lori got him involved, they went and shot a bunch of videos of Bill. And so he got on social media and he was building a little bit of a following. So we said, what would be fun? Let's take Bill to the Social Media Club Seattle event, right? Where average age is 25 and see what happens. And so we bring this 96-year-old guy, don't tell anybody, bring him, drop him off in the middle of the social media club, and you just people didn't know what to do. They saw this 96-year-old guy hobbling with his walker across to his seat like nothing was going on. And the Brian Westbrook, who was the MC of the event, just kind of was like, what's going on? Tell me about why you're here. I don't know. You're the oldest member of Social Media Club. This is fantastic. And they get into the story, and this is where go and find somebody inside your organization. You can't plan stuff like this. Where Bill's just excited to be there, right? He's jazzed. He's he's just all over the place. He's a buzz. And Brian asked Bill, so what do you tell the seniors to get them all excited? And Bill goes, I tell them, all it takes is a finger, right? And that became the line, right? That became the line through the Twitter sphere, all through Social Media Club night. All it takes is a finger, right? And so that kind of kickstarted, and that gave us the momentum to talk to GeekWire. And then GeekWire was like, absolutely, this is going to be the Geek of the Week. There's no question here. And then that kind of kickstarted into this, hopefully he'll be on. What is his? Where's the end goal? Jimmy Fallon, or what was the end goal?
Oh, Leno probably.
Oh, yeah.
See, that's why we work with Andy, because he remembers all the details. I obviously don't.
So that's the Bill Sleeper story. And so this is Kickstarter. We're now looking around Merrill Gardens for, we've got a technology person. Maybe we can find a culture person. Can we find movies, music? What else can we do?
It is a good example because we have, there are, as I said, lots of great stories out there. But again, how do we capture them? How do we understand, our community in Naples, Florida, or our community in Atlanta or San Diego or anywhere around here? How do we find those? And that's what we've been able to accomplish using our relationship with Andy via both Social 3i and now Relaborate is finding more of these stories because that's what people resonate with.
So let's switch over now to something completely different. First of all, why don't you tell people a little bit about what Vitana does or is, and then we'll kind of go through the Vitana story.
Great, happy to do it, and thanks for having me. It's great to be here. My name again is Rebecca. I just started with Vitana a few weeks ago as our CEO, and I couldn't be happier to share our story with you. So we are actually a Seattle-based nonprofit organization. We are dedicated to eradicating youth poverty around the globe. That's our very simple goal. We're attacking it at the root cause, and we find that the last thing standing between the life that poverty has imposed upon these youth and a better life and breaking that cycle of poverty is access to education. So I have 10,000 stories I could tell you, but I just want to introduce you to Janice. So Janice lives in the Philippines. She and her family were living in abject poverty, $2 a day. Her father was an alcoholic, and her brother committed suicide when she was just 15. But through a very small microloan from Vitana, she was able to complete her education, and now here's a picture of her teaching her own students. She's completely repaid her loan back to us, and she has entered the middle class and made a better life for her, her family, and for generations to come. So that's the Vitana story in a nutshell.
But see, now that sounds like most companies in here don't have a Janice story to tell, right? That seems like an obvious way to market your company. So you guys were always doing that way, right?
You would think. We've been around for 4 to 5 years, depending on where you fix our founding date. We were started by a wonderful visionary who came out of Amazon. And in early days, we were selling a hope and a dream. You know, we didn't have success stories like this to talk about. But we talked about is, hey, let's look at the repayment rate in microfinance institutions around the world. And it's 99.8%. And these loans are being repaid at par plus 30. It's mind-numbing, right? Your eyes are already glazing over as I tell you this story. And it's really only been in the past year that we listened to the marketplace and understood that our story is nothing more than their story and all the stories of the 10,000 students we've helped already. So it has evolved. It seems obvious now, you know, hindsight is 20/20, but that's not always been our narrative.
So how do you, if you're looking at it from a calendaring perspective or a planning perspective, is there anything you can do to kind of call out certain stories at certain times of the year?
We do that all day, every day. So if you look at our website, little public service message here, vitana.org, you'll find that the interface is a now somewhat familiar experience like Kickstarter, where you'll go to our site, you can get to know these students, and they're telling their own story. So you see their picture, they're telling you why they need this loan and what it's going to do for them and their families. I just have to tell one more. So okay, so we've been working very hard to launch a program in Rwanda, and if any of you are familiar with the situation there, absolutely devastated by genocide. We only had half a dozen applications a year ago. When you're fighting for your life, higher education is not what you're thinking about. But we just got 100 applications, and this young woman, and half of our applicants have lost one or both of their parents in the violence. My favorite new student that I'm getting to know is a young mother of 4, recently widowed, and her story, and you'll see her I statement on the Vitana website, is that she's got 4 kids. She wants to complete her education to inspire her children. I mean, it's just amazing, awe-inspiring stuff. So you go to our website, you can get to know any number of these students. But I'll tell you, you know, last Friday was International Women's Day. And even though 60% of the students that we help are women, it's not 100%, on the homepage of our website, we featured nothing but young women that day. I mean, we are purposeful about our campaigns. I'm gonna go kick off a screening of Girl Rising at Seattle University later this month, and I'm gonna be talking about stories of young women. And so it's really important to, you know, connect your audience to someone whose story is going to resonate with them. Yeah?
Yep.
All right.
And now we're going to go to a completely different side, and we're going to talk about real estate and apartment living. Right? How's that for a transition?
It's really exciting, isn't
Everybody's
it?
neck's okay from that kind of nonprofit swing over? Because going at the blender example, is there anything kind of less sexy than trying to market an apartment? Lori's like, what? Of course there is. There isn't. An apartment building, right? How do we market an apartment building? What can there be a story? What kind of story can come around an apartment building? So we'll go back to Billy here and kind of give us the overview of how you're trying to involve storytelling into the content marketing side of the Lyric.
Well, I'm going to stand up this time. That's more fun. So Andy's right. I mean, there's nothing sexy about real estate. I mean, there just isn't. I mean, apartments, you can go and put up fancy pictures, and we can show you our floor plans. I mean, it's not all that exciting. I mean, you can find our pricing. That's great. But how do you differentiate yourselves? How do you capture that audience and create what we're trying to do at Pillar, which is develop more of a lifestyle model similar to what we've done on Merrill Gardens for multifamily apartments. So the focus from our standpoint was always, really taking a building and creating a personality. And it's both a personality that can resonate with any of our prospects or residents, but also with the neighborhood itself. So we've got this, you've already heard about Quietly Awesome. That's kind of one of our primary kind of core principles, is just the Quietly Awesome experience. The other one is Localicious. So Localicious is all about being a good neighbor, creating a sense of community, and in order to do that, we can slap some signs up on the building, but we need to, as I said, create a personality, and so that's really what we've done here by engaging the community, engaging small business, local retailers, and then ultimately what it does is it just gives prospects and current residents all that much more of a reason to almost feel a sense of ownership in creating that personality of the building, that community, that lifestyle element that we're looking for.
How do you engage the local businesses?
Actually, thus far, it has been solely focused on social media. Most of it's been Twitter or Facebook. We've had quite a bit of success there. It's really about creating, quality partnerships, and so, we can help endorse them. We hope they help endorse us, and that's how we've taken it thus far.
So one of the additional things on there, again, I'll fill in a detail for you because I remember Lori talking about it, was the how they're purposely driving their residents to the local businesses. They're going out and getting $25 gift certificates from Cupcake Royale or whatever is around the neighborhood because they want their residents to go spend their money and spend their time and tweet and Facebook and take pictures and Instagram of the local businesses. And then what happens is it's not really a recruitment tool, right? The social media channels, there's no ROI on, no one is coming directly through the Facebook page, but what they're seeing is that where their friends live is a nice place to live. And when they're making that conscious decision of where do I want to go live, they're not making that all the time. They're only making it once in a while, but there's that kind of like that car mentality of we're going to be there, we're going to be top of your mind, and when it is time to decide where to go live, well, the things that'll pop to mind is like, well, geez, Billy seems to be living in a really cool spot. But it's not because it's a great apartment, it's because there's all these great restaurants and bars and movie theaters.
Well, it's actually, it's even beyond that. It's not even just about your immediate friends. Anybody can solicit feedback that way. What this has really allowed us to do is, generate more interest from people who are completely unrelated in any form whatsoever by, again, this personality, or I should say through this personality, simply because our residents are now, again, they're acting as endorsers for us. They're essentially becoming evangelists, and they're excited about it, so they're more than willing to go and publish positive reviews about us on any of the review sites, which is really what has started to drive even more traffic to our own website. And so a strategy that started with no focus on lead generation whatsoever has turned into one that has been rather successful. I'd say our traffic from hits on whether it's our blog, via Twitter, or even through Facebook, redirecting to our website has increased substantially. And it's all about generating, again, those positive customer reviews, which we don't actively solicit them. We'll send out the typical link to Yelp or apartmentratings.com or Google Plus, any of them. But it's the customer who ultimately has to respond, and they feel inclined to do so because they love living there.
So two other small tactical things to go into is the businesses that they'll go out and solicit feedback from have social networks themselves and social followings, right? And so Cupcake Royale has, so if you're a small business out there and you're not building your own kind of tribe of social, Twitter's stupid, no one's going to come in, but you are missing an opportunity to have other companies kind of engage with you and kind of help try to partner with you. So that I would say that's kind of the key tactical takeaway there as well. So now we're going to snap the neck one more time and go from apartment living to online dating in the startup world. And so, Rebecca, why don't you give us a little insight about what LikeBright is and kind of the story behind them?
Sure. So you might wonder why I'm telling this particular story. So I wear a few different hats in the community. Like Andy, I also teach at the University of Washington in the MBA program there. And I am also a mentor at the Techstars program, which actually is the world's largest technology startup incubator. It was through that program that I met the CEO of this company, LikeBright, Nick Soman, an incredibly compelling person. We just clicked instantly. And full disclosure, I am now on the advisory board, so I do love to tell this story. I had Nick come in and talk to my class of MBAs about LikeBright. And as a mentor, having run an angel investment group here in the Northwest Entrepreneur Network, I have literally heard thousands of stories, which really that's what investor pitches are. When you're presenting your business to an investor, you're telling them a story, and they all sound like, here's our value proposition, and look at the market opportunity, and here's how we're all going to get rich together, blah, blah, blah. So Nick comes in to this class of MBAs, and he talks about the online dating market and how 96% of the people who could be dating online aren't doing it yet, and he's got the solution. And again, your eyes kind of glaze over with the numbers and the stats. At the end of his pitch, my student said, okay, so seriously, like what are you doing here? He's like, all right, basically this is it. This is the value proposition. And here's my line I've been using for 20 years. The best wingman is a wing woman. So what LikeBright does is it's a dating layer that sits on top of Facebook that enables friends to meet other friends. So basically women vouch for the great guys. And the way he encapsulated that so perfectly is he said, all right, look at me. Look at my girlfriend. The only reason that I get to date this amazing woman is that we were introduced from friends. And that stuck. The happy resolution to this story is twofold. One, he is now married to Anna, and they are expecting. And two, LikeBright is the first company to get funding from the Big Fund right here in Seattle. So I think that's a pretty amazing resolution. And Nick is a great storyteller. I just want to tell you that his story evolved from, engineering stats, sort of MBA, market analysis, to a real personal connection about what inspired him to start this business.
So you see a lot of pitches.
I do.
So maybe there's some startup folks out here as well. I mean, obviously, so how do you balance the we're all going to get rich together side with kind of the emotional heartstrings version in a pitch deck?
Yep. I mean, I think in the startup world, we now are calling it pivot, but the reality of the situation is you get a team together, you have an idea, you look at a market, and 9 times out of 10, the first idea out of the gate isn't really going to resonate the way that you hope it will. And so as much as you can paint this picture of financial projections and market size, at the end of the day, the only thing you know about financial projections is they will be wrong. You're going to totally beat them or miss them, but they're not going to be right. The only thing you can count on when you're investing in a startup is the team. So when you're investing in the team, I think that making that personal connection goes a long way. Even though investors are going to have a checklist of things, is there a world in which we can make hundreds of millions of dollars? When they're investing in that team, part of what they want to know is, doing a startup is crazy, right? I mean, you're right on the edge of insanity. Hopefully you're on the right side of insanity, but you're right up there with crazy. Why are you doing this? And when you tell that sort of creation story about why you were so compelled and inspired to give up that, nice paying job, day job that you had and chase this thing down, I think there's something magical that happens when you are yourself a customer, right? You're eating your own dog food. And you hear about why people start these businesses, and oftentimes it's that they've been wrestling with a problem that they're solving for themselves. And I do see, I see that connection, that sort of chemistry happen with investors when you can tell a story like that. Yeah, I'm off the hook for now.
You're off the hook.
Thanks.
We're remarkably on time budget right now. It's fantastic. We're purposely leaving about 10 minutes for Q&A. I got to say, this guy's going to walk out the door, but we've still got 100% attendance from the beginning of the session, and that's like a big thing when you're up here. Like, we're about to lose 100%, but I think he got dragged out. I don't think that's his fault. Also, another trick I learned sometime along the way, except I didn't expect Rebecca to be sitting in front of it, is we put our Twitter handles down at the bottom corner there on every slide. So if you do feel like tweeting about #MarketMix something at Andy or at Aboy or at Overlaborate, that's fine. A shameless self-promotional plug, but maybe the Market Mix people will go, hey, 100% attendance, 40 minutes through. Good job, guys. Maybe come back next year. I had 30 seconds to burn, so. So they did ask me in the materials that they sent over. They said, "Great, strategy's great, story is great, fine, panelists, whatever, draw, fine. But can we have some tactics in our presentation? Will you please don't just give us a whole bunch of stuff on that we can't do anything with." So I've got some kind of a 5 to 10 minute version of how we actually execute this, and to some extent how we built it into our software. But this is how we execute these stories, and there's 5 points. And the first thing is, you guys are all the marketing people in the organization, and so you're tasked with writing this content, right? And you have no ability to know everything that's interesting that's happening in your companies, right? So the best thing to do is go ask. Go find, go look for the customer support person who just answered their 1 millionth phone call, right? There's people in your organization who are fascinating and interesting and nowhere close to the marketing department. I learned an important lesson when we were at Real Networks, when they launched. A guy named Andrew Wright was building the games group, and we moved from our building in 3rd Avenue, we moved over here to just across the street, and everybody was jockeying for space with the windows. We all wanted to see the Whitecaps, which, by the way, are still beautiful. In case you were curious. And so Andrew took his team, his new games team, and went to the bottom basement corner of the organization, and nobody saw them for forever until all of a sudden we got an email saying, hey, I need access to your 200 million email addresses because we're launching the games business tomorrow. And so the story there is nobody bothered to go find the interesting thing that was happening in the corner at that time, which was they had suddenly gone from 3 people to 40 people in the games business and were launching products. So go find the people in your organization, find the stories, find what's going on. Second thing is to plan, right? And it's actually not that hard. If you sit down and look 6 months out and ask your sales folks, hey, where are you guys going? And one of your salespeople come back and say, yeah, I've just crossed the 500,000 mile mark on my travels this month or this year. That would be a lot of months, but this year. Like I bet there's some interesting stories there. You've talked to 500,000 miles worth of customer. Like tell me where you're going, because maybe I can build a story about your trip around the world, right? Or what are the trade shows? What are the conferences we're going to? And can we map them to our product launches? Where are our executives going to be keynoting, right? These are really easy things to do, and it doesn't take much. If you guys are all in marketing or corp comm, all you really need from your CEO when they show up at an executive, when they're presenting, just shoot them an email. Right? What'd you see? Who'd you talk to? Right? Get a quote from them. You can kind of fill in the rest of the story at that point. Get them, these things are no longer phones, right? These are mobile recording devices, right? Get them up. You saw me take a picture up here, right beforehand. How hard was that? We actually published a blog post already. While I've been standing up here, amazingly, we published a blog post about what we're talking about here, because I have a team that can help me with that. All I have to do is take a picture. So if you go to relaborate.com/blog, it looks like I'm sitting up here and typing while I was talking to you. So, but you do have this opportunity to kind of plan ahead, look ahead, see what's coming up. Then write everything down, right? This sounds so trivial, but just, we use the term now a digital pin board, right? Where we're just writing down notes and kind of pinning it up in a shared folder, right? And I don't know when these stories are going to develop, but I do know that we hired a new CTO named Grant Gavaris, and I know that he was at Aptio and Amazon Web Services before. So I know I'm going to write a story about Grant. So I just need to write that down. And as I learn more about Grant, as I go have a beer with him or I go have lunch with him, those are things I'm going to keep in the back of my head. And soon enough, I'm going to have enough material that it's actually going to be a story that I can publish to our social channels. And there's a lot of good stories like that. Just see something cool, and just write it down and ask other people in your organization, do you think there's something? Is there legs here? Ask customers. When your customers send you comments, right? If customers they're taking the time to email you comments about your products, this is stuff that can be published and turned that other customers probably want to read. The other thing we talked a little bit about, don't think about should I be on Facebook? It's, you've got these great stories. You've got these really interesting people to talk about. Where are the channels that my tribe is actually hanging out? It may be Pinterest, it may not be. It may be Twitter. Who knows where it may be. Every one of these channels has kind of a different goal to it. But you use your website and your blog as the centerpiece of this content, right? You tell all your stories here, and then let it get distributed and syndicated out through other channels. And once it gets syndicated out to the masses, then your tribe is able to kind of take it, pick it up, and move it through to their masses as well. And then I think the most important thing to take away, and this was a last-minute title change. It used to say, listen to your data. And at the last minute, I changed the title on this slide to listen to your ratings. So I want you to think about your broadcast, think about your content creation as the way that a TV station would, right? Think about your newsroom, if you will, right? What are the stories or what are the characters that your customers are relating to, right? Where are the ratings coming from? And this is just Google Analytics, and you can look at that because you write a blog post that mentions customer support, and you never would have expected it, but traffic went through the roof because somehow it got picked up. Another trick along these lines is keep track of, like, if you mention if we mention customers in a blog, we get more traffic back to our site because the customers then forward it out. One of our biggest successes personally as a publishing company or as a marketing company doing some publishing, we went to a conference in Vancouver called the Grow Conference. We saw a woman named Julia Hartz, who was the COO of Eventbrite. I think you guys familiar with Eventbrite? You know. So everybody was tweeting, I just saw Julia Hartz, great job, Julia Hartz, great job. And what we noticed was every time they sent a tweet out that mentioned Julia Hartz or Eventbrite, Eventbrite sent out to their 140,000 people on Twitter. So we go, well, we can do one better than that. So from our mobile recording device, right, we quickly wrote a blog post, posted that, sent out the tweet that said, here's the link to our post about what Julia Hartz talked about, right? They sent that out. It ended up, unfortunately, being a test of our web server, which we failed. But we did learn a lot about how much traffic could get to the site at one time before we had to call Amazon Web Services. But it was what it was is these guys were just happy to send an article. They were happy that somebody was writing about them. And so they were happy to send that article out to their tribe as well. So kind of the ask, plan, write, distribute, listen model, because, I do, like Rebecca said, teach at the UW, so I have to have some sort of MBA slide on here, right? And so to recap kind of my 45 minutes that I had up here with you guys, is that I think stories are important because it connects to customers and gets really through the clutter, right? It's not about 25 tweets in a month, some of you guys may work for agencies and your clients probably have, I need 25 tweets a month. That's what I'm going to pay you guys for. And that just doesn't make any sense, right? It's can we build a story and can we use Twitter or Facebook or whatever to connect customers to that story? The 25 tweet, this is a true story. I was on the bus listening to they were maybe 21, 22-year-old. They both worked in marketing. They were going back toward the UW area. And one said, how was your work? She goes, yeah, I only work one day a week because I come into the office. I work 8 hours. I find the 25 tweets to put into Hootsuite, and then then I don't have to go in the rest of the week. I was like, really? That's actually not social media. That's just spam. Anyway, the great thing about storyteller marketing is that you can go. You notice when somebody has attracted your attention, right? And if it's Red Bull or if it's Dollar Shave Club or if it's, Will It Blend, you kind of look at what they're doing and dissect and kind of relate it back to your own company and say, well, we don't have a Steve Jobs, but we got a Bill Sleeper, and I wonder if we could do something with a Bill Sleeper, right? Is there a way that we can do something there? So to kind of try to take the model and bring it along. We don't have to build Mad Men. Right? We just need a single hero. We just need a single challenge and a resolution, and that will evolve over time. And we can go through multiple seasons, right? You can kind of find a new hero later. And then really, and I want to stress this, that there are a lot of interesting people in your company, in your organization, in your customer base, in your partner programs, and these are all sources of inspiration for good stories. So. My last slide, because Billy's a staunch Republican, I had to make sure that I put an Obama slide in here just to make him mad. But I want to thank you for the presentation. And now I want to open this up for questions for Billy or Rebecca or myself or anything that we can. Yeah.
So obviously, Steve Jobs really works for the CEO to be your own type of customer. Do you recommend that for startups, small companies?
I'll let Rebecca handle this as well, but I think the CEO has to be the center point of the. If not the CEO, then pick somebody else that makes sense. But you look at some of Seattle's most effective startups in the last couple years. Rand Fishkin, right, is the hero of SEO Moss. He's got a bunch of really smart people working for him, but Rand is the hero there, and you kind of got. I'll let you talk more to that.
Yeah, I do agree that Rand is a hero. He's one of mine as well. But he's a hero because he lights up a room and he tells a great story. Sometimes that story is about himself and what he and his mom had to give up to build this company. But I think over time, that creation story goes away, and really good storytellers tell the stories of their customers and their market. And so I think if your CEO can light up a room, that's great. But I think ultimately, the Vitana story isn't about any one of us who work there. It's about the people that we serve and the impact that we make.
That's true. I agree with that more than what I said before. Yeah.
I could ask you a very down question, but I will.
Okay.
How much, because I love the presentation about the
So most of our vetting happens up front, and I think the reason that we are so successful is that there's something in their DNA about wanting to, complete their education and succeed. We're standing on the shoulders of giants in the world of microfinance, and many people, not Janice, but many of our other students, are kind of second generation. So their parents maybe got loans from Kiva or Grameen, bought that goat and created a micro business. Our students also, I think the reason that we find the ones that are poised to succeed, and education is just the last thing in their way. So they're really good high school students. We've got really wonderful indicators of success going into it. And so it's not about, it is partly about finding out what happened to them later. As much as we love education, the reason we're doing it is so they can get jobs. So we do this extensive due diligence to make sure that when we fund them, they've got a really good chance at succeeding. And that is why we have a 99.8% repayment rate. So if you don't do that work up front, you could have those bad surprises at the end.
I think on the corporate side, it's a little less dangerous, right? Yeah, probably customers and partners probably got their own vetting process, but yeah. Yeah.
Rebecca, so I know there's a lot of nonprofits out there and a lot of helpful stories as well as nonprofits. So how do you guys differentiate yourself and stand out? I feel like there's a lot of stories out there, but it's really tough to find different voices. So how do you tell stories?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And so, part of telling a good story is understanding your audience. And so we are a nonprofit that resonates with some people. With others, what really resonates is that we're a social enterprise and we are kind of funding entrepreneurship. And so we have actually a pretty fascinating and sustainable business model, and we're building our own business of scale. So when we talk to Rich Barton or Vinod Khosla, who are big backers of Vitana, they love that scrappy entrepreneurial, scalable success story. And others, impact investors, or who really, the story of Janice and Rwanda and others are going to resonate with them. We'll tell that side of the story. So it's not, we don't tell the same story all the time. We have to understand whom we're speaking with, and it's different whether it's a high net worth individual, private kind of impact investor, or an institution who really wants to know all those details, like 99.8% repayment and par plus 30 and yada yada yada. So we trot out different stories based on our audience, and I think whatever business model you happen to be in, that's always going to be the case, is know your audience.
Any other questions? Yeah.
So I work in corporate communications, and I don't get to do a lot of, I'll call it regular marketing. So I get to use stories in a way that help our executives tell stories to our clients. I work at an agency. So it's not this VP, really. And I find that it's really hard to get the story from the interesting people inside the organization for our executives to then share out. How do I get them to give me the story? Because I can email them, I can talk to them, and they're too busy, and they've got their own client relationships that they need to maintain, and they want to keep their stories for their team, and they don't want it to get bigger because they want to. How do I get them engagement?
So how do you get people who don't want to share a story to share a story? That's an excellent question. Does anybody have familiarity with that? Is anybody, yeah.
I do this all the time because I work in sales, right? So I'm on the opposite side. My whole job is to get people to share their story. They don't really want to share it with me, right?
Right.
That's my job, right? So that I can understand their need and then help them. But I work for a company, an agency that does a really great job of sharing stories. What I do, and I really learn from them, the folks that I work with, is that one, what am I offering you? Right? What am I giving you? Right? If you share your story, what am I giving you? What's that exchange? Is that you get to have coffee with a really fun, exciting person? That's what I try and give. Is it that you're going to, share their story with somebody so that they can have more of an impact in their own organization? Is it that you're going to take them to lunch? What is it that you have to offer them so that what they have to offer you is there? I mean, people want to talk about themselves. Everybody does. So, asking first and then offering.
Yeah, and there was one other thing I was going to add. I think that's spot on. One other thing I forgot to mention in the presentation is, especially in B2B organizations, Well, it's amazingly hard to recruit talent these days, right? You can get employees, but it's really hard to compete for talent. And one of the things that the real talented people are looking for is this a place that I want to go to work, right? And so you can use your corporate communications and you can use your corporate blog and really show off, like, good people, A-level people want to work with other A-level people, right? And so you can kind of introduce your organization. Don't be scared that they're going to get taken away because, if I talk about Joanne, she's going to, Agency X is going to steal her away. Well, Agency X can already find her on LinkedIn, so it doesn't matter, right? But if you kind of show that it's a really great place to work, and maybe that's an angle to your executives, like, boy, we were having a really hard time getting A-level talent. Why don't we share a little bit about what makes this place so great to work at? And let's get the A-level people calling us. And maybe they already do at your agency. But I mean, that's one angle. Is like, it's not make it about you. It's make it about attracting talent. I know that's a challenge for a lot of
I
companies.
think, one thing to answer part of your question is how do you get them to actually respond? And one of the things we found, and this is, again, it's not B2B, it's more just, we have 20 years of experience in the senior housing industry. We've got an executive management team that has a tremendous amount of knowledge built up, but no way to share it. So we've been in, this is going to be a little bit of a sales pitch, I guess.
Go off the stage. I'll never get invited back.
I'll just say we've found a way by making it easy. It's simplified, and it's not putting a blank piece of paper in front of them. I mean, because they're not going to know what to write down. They don't have the time to sit there and think about it. So by being very specific in your approach and being, just looking for concise answers. I mean, you're not looking for a narrative or someone's, life story. You just want specific answers to a few specific things, and the easier you make it, the more likely they'll respond.
Yeah, just to add on to that, if the unwillingness to participate is because they are scared of that blank sheet of paper, I get requests all the time to take meetings, which is great, and I always want to say yes. But when somebody gives me a general ask like, "Will you be my mentor?" I'm like, "Oh God, I don't know what that means. Is it going to take hours and hours?" But if they say, "I would love for you to look at my pitch deck, and I have these two very specific questions," then it's easy to say yes. So if you make that ask really specific and sort of cue up, and put some guardrails around that conversation or that problem, then it's much easier for them to say yes.
Okay, so we are at 11 o'clock, so I think I need to turn you guys loose, but we'll be out here if you have any other questions. I'm Andy at relaborate.com. Feel free to email me. Thank you guys very much.